What does a contraction feel like? How do I know if I'm in labor? And what does a day of labor look like? Wait, is this normal? Hey, I'm Heidi. My best friends call me Hides. I'm a certified birth doula, host of this podcast, and author of Birth Story, an interactive pregnancy guidebook. I have supported hundreds of women through their labor and deliveries, and I believe every one of them and you deserves a microphone and a stage. So here we are. Listen each week to get answers to these tough questions. Birth Story, where we talk about pregnancy, labor, deliveries, where we tell our stories and share our feelings. And of course, chat about our favorite baby products and motherhood. And because I'm passionate about birth outcomes, you will hear from some of the top experts in labor and delivery. Whether you are pregnant, trying desperately to get pregnant, or you just love a good birth story, I hope you will stick around and be part of this birth story family. Episode 33. Hey, everybody. I have a little disclaimer before this episode because it's a little bit different than some of the birth stories that you've heard. Today, we're going to dive into the exploration of the birth story of one of my friends, Shaine, who was born Taylor. And the reason that this episode is being aired on the Birth Story podcast is that many, if not all of you, are pregnant, soon to be pregnant, or are raising children. And part of our journey into parenthood that is shifting in today's world is understanding the difference between our children, our baby inside of us growing in our womb, their biological sex organs compared to their gender. We have hashtag gender reveal. Our society and many societies around the world continue to mistake gender and sex as one and the same. Earlier on in my podcast, I have even let it slide when guests have talked about their gender reveal or finding out the gender of the baby. So today's episode is all about being open to knowing that the baby that you're growing inside of you has both a sex and a gender that will develop when they are around 4 to 5 years old. I remember being pregnant with Max and watching a viral YouTube video about Rylan. And Rylan is transgender and transitioned very young. And I just remember listening to this parent's story and thinking, gosh, I didn't even consider this. I'm rubbing my belly. Did not know if Max was going to have the sex organs of a boy or a girl. We were surprised at the birth. But I remember thinking for the first time, it was right around the time Caitlyn Jenner was transitioning also. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm going into parenthood thinking about some things in the way in which I will love my children in a way that I've never thought I would have to think about. Many years later, my children are now 5 and 4, and we are so thankful that we had those conversations and those thoughts early on as one of our family members is transitioning right before our eyes. And so today's episode is very personal to me. It's very special to me. And I hope that even if you're here because you were hoping for just a birth story in its traditional sense, that you will stick around and you will listen to how we can transform the way we think about sex and gender. And so before the episode starts, I'm going to read you a children's book that my children have called Who Are You? The Kid's Guide to Gender Identity. And it's by Brooke Pesson-Wedby and illustrated by Naomi Bardoff. And it begins, This is a story about you. The important thing to remember is that you are the one who knows you best. When babies are born, people ask, is it a boy or a girl? Babies can't talk, so grown-ups make a guess by looking at their bodies. This is the sex assigned to you at birth, male or female. Sometimes people get this confused with gender, but gender is much more than the body you were born with. As babies grow into kids, they start to know what they like and what they don't like. This is your personal expression, what you like, how you dress and act. There are so many ways to express yourself. What you like can change as you grow up, or even from day to day. What do you like? When I'm reading this book to my children, they'll often say, I like the giraffe. I like the plane. And the next one will say, I like the paintbrushes. And it does change day to day. The next is a picture of the closet and the clothes. And I often ask my boys, which clothes do you like? And some days they like the cargo pants and the polo shirt. And some days they choose the ballerina tutu or the fancy dress. So kids know a lot about themselves. They know who they are by how they feel inside. This is your identity. Who you feel like inside, who you know yourself to be. This can also change as you grow up or change from day to day. Your gender is just one part of your identity. What makes you you? Some people say there are only two genders, but there really are many genders. I am a girl. I am a boy. I am both. I am neither. I am just me. You are who you say you are because you know you best. For some people, the grown-ups guessed right about their body and their gender. This is called cisgender, when someone's identity matches their sex that they were assigned at birth. And for some people, there are more than two choices. These are just a few words people use. Trans, genderqueer, non-binary, gender fluid, transgender, gender neutral, agender, bigender, third gender, two-spirit. And there are even more words people are using to describe their experience. This is called the gender spectrum. There are lots of ways to be a boy. There are lots of ways to be a girl. There are lots of ways to be a kid. So be who you are. I just want to say thank you, Brooke Pessin-Wedby, for this incredible book. And I hope that you enjoy the birth story of Shaine Laine in episode 33. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Birth Story Podcast. It's Heidi. And today I have a really fascinating and exciting guest, Shaine. Shaine is actually the very first boy that I am going to be interviewing on the podcast solo. So today we're taking a little bit of a diversion because it's Shaine's birthday. So whoop, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you for
Maybe I'll
having me.
sing to you later on your birthday.
Excellent. I'm ready.
But I wanted to share two kinds of things about Shaine's life. So we're going to learn all about Shaine, and then we're going to hear Shaine's birth story from birthing from a female body into his true male self.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I really appreciate you having me on and talking about this and being able to fully sit down and see my own story itself because, I see it going on in the present, but actually diving in and seeing how all this came about, this is really informative for not only me, but for everyone. So I'm excited about this.
It is, yeah. And so anyone who's listening right now and is like, this is interesting, this is, going a little bit off topic, but I hope that everyone could see how relevant this is because this really, truly is a rebirth.
Uh-huh.
When adults, like we just heard in the book, when adults guess gender based on really the sexual parts that our bodies are born with. The baby's born and we talk about on this podcast and we're like, it's a boy or it's a girl. Or often on this podcast, I have people say, I found out the gender. Yeah. And I'm really having to change that language on this podcast, on my platform to say like, you didn't find out the gender of your baby. You found out the sex of your baby. You found out that your baby had a penis or a vagina.
The biological side of it.
Yes, which is very different than gender. So today we're just going to tackle this. Education through storytelling is my platform. And so I want to hear your story, Shaine. I want to hear about all of it, where, how you were born, what your life has been like, you know, how this process unfolded. I want people that are listening to like learn from you by hearing your story. And how we found each other is like I showed up at the local comedy club here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte Comedy Zone.
Woo. And it was a big lineup, right? And you got this form and I had to rank everybody. And Shaine gets up on stage and is hysterical and is likely one of the few people I was like checking off as like, yes, awesome. Like bring him back. So good. Amazing comedian. You're really good. And I've been following you on Instagram too. But I was sitting there and I was thinking, you know, I'm going to record this story authentically. And one of my family members right now is transitioning. And so maybe right before I walked into that comedy club, I was, you know, very much in grief, very much in shock, very much confused. And I sat down and it took a topic that I thought was like scary and heavy and I walked out of that comedy club feeling okay. Like, okay, this person in my family is still the same person. Like none of that is changing.
Yeah. When you came up to me after the show and like, I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. The timing, everything involving what happens in your life is the reason that it's happening. And so when you came to me after the show, like I was really like, oh my God, like I don't know. This is my first couple of times doing this, and I'm just really trying to feel things out. And is this really a relevant topic that people are wanting to listen to? And then when you came up after and we had our conversations, it was just riveting myself and just, oh, wow, this is something that can reach people who are going through things, even if it's not someone who's transitioning themselves, but it's someone who's involved with it, their family members, their people in their lives, and having that connection. So that was like really good for me. And able to talk about that with you was just invigorating.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, this last year of my life has been one of those things. You know how people say when you're thinking about buying a certain car, like a Honda Accord, then you go out and all you see on the road are like Honda Accords, you know? And so that's what this year has been like for me. Like if I look back on like the previous years of my life, like maybe I would have known about someone who was transitioning or someone who is transgender besides Caitlyn Jenner. But, you know, maybe not. But now I feel like that my eyes have been open and I allowed my heart to be open to all of the ways in which we are human and we are great people. Now I feel like everywhere I go, I'm running into a friend who has a child who's transitioning, or a friend whose spouse is transitioning, or a friend who says, you know, I feel more non-binary. You know, some days I feel really feminine and sometimes I feel pretty masculine. And in the Native American cultures, I've been reading a lot about like two spirits. We're here to listen to your story today, but I am hoping that when people finish listening to this podcast, it's like they're driving down the road and they see all those Honda Accords. Yeah. Like that their eyes are a little bit more open and just a little bit more like generous, you know, with their love at the end of today.
Yeah.
So
like at the end, we're all humans. We're just trying to live our own lives, and just being able to be a part of someone's journey like that while also doing our own journey is just fabulous, really. And just being connected that way is really awesome.
Yeah.
So happy birthday.
Thank you.
And let's hear your whole story. Okay, so where are you from?
So originally I was born in Charlotte and I lived in the Steel Creek area before it like started popping up. I think it's an outlet mall now. That was not even a topic of discussion.
This was still country.
Yeah, this was still like rural country type thing. And so...
And let's start too. I'm going to interrupt. How old are you?
I am 25 today.
25?
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
You look much younger than that.
That's what people tell me. And sometimes because comedy, acting, all of that, I say that I'm 33 and it's a straight deadpan face. And they're like, there's no way. What's your birth year? And I did the math just to play along with it. I was like, yep, 1986, this day. And they're like, what? That's insane. I was like, no, I'm actually 25.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you were born more in like 1994.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. I only know that because my little sister is also 25.
Oh, gotcha.
So.
Okay, gotcha.
Anyway, so you were born here in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
So I was born in Charlotte, and then I also was born with a couple of birth defects. I was born... I think it was a dislocated hip. I just can't remember completely, but I came out kind of crooked and they were like, what's wrong with this baby?
Hip dysplasia?
Yes.
There
that's
we go.
what I was like, something with a D and all that. So they did a couple of surgeries on me. And for the first 3 years of my life, I had a brace on. Okay. And after coming to the doctor, they're like, oh, this person's not really going to walk too well, or definitely no sports. Well, I played all sports in middle school and high school and even in some college. So that was just out the window. But that was like a very interesting part of my life. I only remember the later times with the brace.
Yeah.
And I've seen pictures of me like sitting kind of legs wide open with the brace on. And it's just interesting kind of seeing it that way and not really remembering what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I stayed here in Charlotte until 5th grade. Then we moved to South Carolina, Fort Mill, South Carolina. So still in the area, but not really too far. And I went through middle school and high school there. And then finally went off to college in Florida. Stayed there till last year. And now I'm back.
Okay, so where did you go to college in Florida?
University of Tampa. It's a private school in downtown Tampa, like right on the water. Beautiful. So it was a really cool place.
Now, what'd you study?
I changed my major about 4 or 5 times, mainly because when I was in high school, I had a dream of being like some sort of artist. I thought it was a graphic designer. And then when I went to school, I was like, film and production's really where I want to go. But I kind of let other people's opinions kind of sway me away.
Okay.
Basically, what I heard was, you're never going to make it in the film industry. You're not going to create great films. Why try? So I switched my major. And I kept switching till I figured something out. And I was like, well, if I want a job after college, I'll just get communications. It's broad enough. I can do anything. And I got a minor in government. There was just a lot of...
Those are so far apart from each other, but also connected.
In a way, yeah. And then like I had intentions of, doing more like clerical or like government work. And I was in government for like a year or so after college. And then like elections came, people moved, people left. And so I kind of got out. And now I'm back on like my creative side. Like, okay, I saw that spot. It's really interesting. It's just not who I am. So I started getting into more like artistry, watching SNL. And then I was like, oh, stand-up is something that's like can encompass anything. And so that's kind of where I just started my path. And now here we are in this podcasting room. So.
Yes. So is that your primary job right now, is stand-up comedy?
That's what we're working on right now.
Okay.
By day, I am a humble barista at Starbucks.
Oh, yes. I'm drinking Starbucks.
The Honda Accord, that's my stuff.
Yes,
Starbucks is my Honda Accord.
Which store are you at?
I'm at UNCC store. So like right across from the university.
I know exactly. The drive-through one.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I know exactly which one it is.
That's where I work. By day, I do that. And then at night, I do whatever I can, whether it's stand-up or producing my videos or getting anything that's creative work done.
So this is another one of those Honda Accords. Now everywhere I go, like I'm a doula, so I'm at the hospital, and on like the back of the wheelchairs.
Okay.
I don't know why, but they all say trans on like transportation, I guess. But they all say just trans.
But for you,
but
you're
for
like,
me, I'm like, it's everywhere. This transition, transgender concept is everywhere. But I was wondering, as someone who has transitioned or is in the process of transitioning, we'll get there, from female to male. How do you feel about the word transition?
I use it in my set. I use it almost every day. I just used it in that sentence, even something that wasn't related to being trans. It's very across the board and very universal. Like, this is a switch of some sort.
Yep.
Like, you are coming to realize that this is the new way to do something. So it's the full transition. I use that word interchangeably almost every day.
Yeah.
And I do in the set where I'm like, okay, let me transition. And big laugh, of course.
Yeah.
It's a word that everyone will understand no matter what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's just like some sort of easier concept in a way to really grasp what's happening.
Okay. You can feel free to use the wheelchair with trans on it in your
I'm going to have to work that into my stuff.
All of the hospitals.
Yep.
So. Okay. Well, let's go back to childhood.
Yeah.
Okay. You're born, you've got this hip dysplasia, like you're working through that. So right away, people have told you like, you can't, but you overcame and you did and you did and you did. And from my research, now this is where we could have like a whole nother discussion, but from my research, gender identity tends to emerge around the age of 5 to 6 years old. And there's a whole bunch of other science that we could go down, but we're not going to go down that today in this podcast because it's a birth story podcast. But for anyone listening, there is a lot of research out there that's undeniable that our gender is very different from our biological sex. This is a science. This is black and white. This is science. It's really not contested in any way, shape, or form. And that our gender identity, the way that we feel on the inside, the way our brain, sometimes it matches our body, sometimes it doesn't match our body, that kind of starts to unfold around the age of like 5 or 6. Now, many people ignore those thoughts because of their family, their religion, society, you name it. They may have a thought, they never verbalize it. They don't bring it up. They, dress in the package they were told to dress in and move on with their life. They're afraid of the things that they're feeling. And then this is when you hear stories very similar to the probably the most famous transitioning story that we know is Caitlyn Jenner, at least here in the United States, that are much older individuals that have already gotten married and had families and children. And then for the first time are saying, no, this is who I am. And it's about time
that it came out that I am this way.
Yeah. And I know at 5 or 6, we don't have tons of memories, right? But I was wanting to kind of dive in with you and talk about your childhood.
Yeah.
Like, you were born in a female body. What was your name?
My name was Taylor. So still pretty gender neutral. But one of the reasons that I decided to change the name is that when people address me as such, I was addressed with feminine attributes, addressed as she, he, or she, and just, it wouldn't feel the same. Probably in middle school, I think it was, I did try to change my name, but my mom was just like, what are you doing? I am not the mother of that person. But it was more like a joking, not a serious, how dare you try to change your name? It was like, I want a nickname. I want to feel important, but I didn't know what it really meant. Like, I didn't know that was one of the starting processes.
So around that 5 to 6 year old time, little Taylor, I'm sure you're like in a dress or, I don't know, you had some dresses.
Yeah. Actually, around, I think it was 6, I went to a private Christian school. So uniforms, and it was a pleated skirt and all of that. I actually remember, like, this is probably one of the first vivid memories about, now that I'm looking back and accepting who I am and all of this, I can really go back through my life and see, wow, I should have picked up at that moment. But I remember crying in the bathroom. I was just playing with some kids on the playground. And I was like, hey, let me play with you. But they're like, you can't, you're a girl and all of this. Like, we don't want to play with girls. I was like, I'm not a girl. And then they went into the full thing, like almost not really physical fight, but it was just a lot of words back and forth. So I remember going to the bathroom, crying a lot. And I really remember just wishing that I was born a boy, or even if I could be a boy for a day. I wouldn't be satisfied, which is a day. But at the time, I'm 6 years old and I'm just like, hey, just make me a boy for right now. And that was like the turning point, really.
Yeah. And you can remember that like vividly at that young of an age.
Mm-hmm.
So did you talk to anyone at this private Christian school about that? Or did you address any of these things? Like when your parents called you Taylor and said she, like at that young age, do you ever remember saying to your parents, like, I feel more like a boy?
I didn't really like address it that way, but while I was not at school, they would let me dress any way I want. It was more so, masculine dress and everything. They thought it was just like tomboy-esque. And they're like, okay, it's time to go to school. You got to get in the skirt. And I was like, I don't want to get in the skirt. And it just kept going that way. But the only people that I would talk to about, the times that I wish I was a boy would be like either my cousin, who was the same age as me, or some people at the school itself, like kids. And I was just like my friends that I could talk with and be open with. They were like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, oh, this. And my cousin, we're 7 or 8 at this time of the story.
Yeah.
And, during Christmas, you get certain things. You got to get socks, like boxers and all of that. He didn't want clothes. He wanted toys. And I was like, I want those boxers. So we kind of like traded toys at a point. So I gave him toys and he gave me boxers. And I was like, wow, this is so great. And then like I would wear that under my skirt and people would think like, they're just shorts for girls or whatnot so that, you're not really exposing after you sit or something. But I was like, no, I know what they are. They're boxers and they feel great.
And did that help? Like back in the day when you were 6 or 7, you wouldn't have had the term dysphoria, like body dysphoria, right? Which is the term, which is like the medical term, I guess, that we use for this. When we look in the mirror and we feel, what we see is not how we feel on the inside, what we see on the outside. There's also another really good book right now I would like to interject on this concept, and it's called Red Crayon. Oh, it's so good. So if you have children and you want to introduce the concept of feeling different on the inside than you look on the outside, it's a children's book that is about now I'm going to get it wrong on whether it was a red or a blue. Oh, it was a red crayon.
Okay.
Sorry, it was really a blue crayon. Felt blue, but had a red package. Oh. And throughout the book, everyone's trying to make it more red and brings it a red scarf and red shoes and tries to fix it and puts a Band-Aid on it. It's a really great book, but it helps kind of explain to children too, that no matter how hard you try, the crayon is blue, And so when you switched out these boxer shorts, for your toys and then wore them under your skirt, I'm assuming that helped remind you, throughout the day that you really were like honoring to yourself. Like, I'm a boy. These boxer shorts help me feel like a boy.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly really what I kind of felt along that. And then going along with like trying the red crown, them giving red scarves and shoes and trying to make them feel more red. That would happen. Like if I was given, feminine clothes or anything like that, I'd be so excited and then look at it like, oh, it's more feminine style. But the times that I would get like, either unisex or masculine shirts, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I'm totally cool with that. But just the whole, like trying to, okay, you're getting a little older. Let's get out of your tomboy phase, quote unquote. And then let's try to get you more feminine. And I think that's really where it started getting like me being reclusive, me not really talking to anyone. And I'm just trying to go about my day without interrupting anyone else's in a way.
Yeah. Okay. And now I'm going to go out on like a ledge that I'm not really sure what the answer is to, but around this age, we haven't gone through puberty yet. So it's not at all, I'm assuming, about sexuality, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm wondering, because I'm making an assumption, so I'm going to ask, before you hit puberty and you're in this gender identity development, are you thinking about the fact that you have a vagina? And like, do you know what a penis is? Or is it just about internal feelings?
Yeah, it was more so about internal feelings because, like, again, sex education in the South, especially back then in the early 2000s, wasn't the greatest. And so it was mainly so just me kind of feeling myself and feeling how I feel on the inside.
Yeah.
And just going along with that. And then once, sex education gets started brought in, that's again when it started being just like, okay, now I have to worry about, I don't have this part, but like I have this. So am I this or am I that? And it was just a whirlwind really of everything. But I do remember like in middle school, right before puberty started hitting, and all these, girls changing in the locker room with like bras and everything. I was like, I don't really care about this. I just, I don't want that ever. And at this point, I was still pretty flat chested. So I'm like, this is fine. I'm not going to grow anything. And then the next year, it's like, it just came out. I was like, oh, well, this is not what I wanted at all. Yeah. It's the opposite.
So by the time you knew, like, girls had vaginas, boys had penises biologically.
Yeah.
And then you go through the emotional development of your gender identity, and then puberty hits. So in my own family member, the way that this was described to me was that and this is a male family member, so as their penis was getting bigger, they were wishing that, like, or just having thoughts like that they kind of wish that their breasts were growing. So it sounds like you were kind of experiencing that, like that your breasts started to grow, and you were like, no,
I don't want this at all. Yeah, it's very similar, especially. And I thought about it one day, like with my friend who is a male to female transgender woman, and she was talking like, I feel so dysphoric because the penis, it literally just is, it's an extension of you. Like it is almost like, just an extra body part itself. And that's harder to forget about. Whereas, with me and my vagina and everything, I just sit, I just do whatever. It's almost like nothing's down there. And it's like a Ken doll almost. And, it's so like, to me, it's not as always on my mind, but with her, she's like, I think about it constantly. Like, what if it shows up? Or like, what if I feel uncomfortable because of it? And I was just like, yeah, that's something that in my transition, I wouldn't experience, but you experience this every day.
That's a really good point because, even with my toddlers, we have a lot of conversations about like private parts and like what they are. Yeah. And when you're trying to raise your children with like knowledge of like gender diversity, we have let them know that nipples and breasts, or that area, and your butt and your penis and your vagina and all of that are private parts. Now, my toddler boys get a little confused then, like if we don't wear a shirt, let's say at the pool.
Yeah.
And then they're like, but my nipples and they'll say my boobs are showing. And I'm like, well, not really, because your body is a boy, physically, whether you're biologically born male or female, everyone has nipples.
Yes.
Right? Or
exactly.
should, I guess.
Yeah.
And a lot of men have breast tissue also. So that does make sense to me that the dysphoria around like a penis could be greater than just like the lack of breasts or the development of breasts. When exactly. The way they look, besides how big they are, is still kind of similar.
And it can be worked with. But, with the penis itself, that's a little more difficult to manage or kind of accept that you have it, but you are feeling this way. Yeah. And so, again, that leads into people's thought of bottom surgery and like, what would I do that way? And it just goes on from there.
Now we're going to take a short break to just share a few things with you. Thanks for listening to the Birth Story podcast. I am so excited to announce the launch of my book, Birth Story, a 42-week guide for your pregnancy, a collection of these birth stories, a ton of doula advice, and journaling prompts. You can order a copy today at birthstory.com. It also will mean the world to me if you'll spread the word about this podcast. So on Stitcher or on iTunes, just leave a review. Thanks. So before we get into I want to go to the next level of getting a little bit deep in, but I want to just push pause and talk about why this conversation is so important that we're having. And this is where I'm probably going to tear up. The suicide rate with transgender persons is really high. And we have shown that if you allow yourself to transition and express and say out loud and change and transition, the suicide rate goes way down. And I'll update it in the show notes because I'm sure it changes from year to year. But the data and the research that I have shown is that as many as 75% of transgender persons try or attempt suicide in their life, but that rate gets cut in half once the transition occurs. So someone, Shaine, like you, is born Taylor in a girl's body. If there was any suicidal thoughts, they could have significantly decreased just by allowing yourself to be the person that you were born to be, but were kind of trapped inside, the wrong body. So I'm going to ask you, like, as you, and only to the extent that you're comfortable answering, but as you went through puberty and this became more and more apparent to you that your brain and your body were not matching and you were having those thoughts, and you just said that you kind of went inside yourself and you shut down. Were you suicidal?
Yes, I was. There were multiple times where I either attempted my own life or went about ways to, kind of alter my body in unhealthy ways. So about the time where I really was kind of understanding I'm not the way that girls are in my school or whatnot, I went into a, kind of eating disorder, tried to be thinner, because I'm a pretty broad person in general. Like I have broad shoulders, I have, kind of wider hips. So I was just like, okay, the only way I can be like that, be accepted and have people really like me is to go through this. And so I wouldn't eat for 3-4 days. And then finally when I did, it would be like a cheese stick or a banana and then continue on. So that's really what was happening during the high school years. And then college, because I'm on my own now, I never fully accepted to myself before I went to college. And neither did I really talk to my family about this. So I was legitimately on my own at this point.
So let me go back. Yeah. So in high school, the whole high school, you were Taylor.
Yes.
You were female and you were trying to be more female.
Yes. So there were times where I'm like, okay, I was raised in a kind of religious family, not super religious, but still God and the Bible and everything. The Christian belief system was prevalent in our family. It's the classic story of the Bible says this, the Bible says you can't do this and all that. And I wasn't open with my family because, I didn't want to go down that route because then the horror stories of families kicking their kids out or just not accepting who they are. So I tried so hard to fit in. And that's, when I started getting my eating disorder and just really my depression state and just not knowing exactly what was happening, kind of fighting two different thought process, the real me coming through, but the society me in a way trying to be accepted and be liked.
Right.
And they were at constant war with each other.
So where were your parents in all this? Did they notice you had an eating disorder or that you were depressed? You said you went inward, but you also said that you had attempted your life and had done some acts on your body. Where were they? Did they know? Was it hidden from them or were they part of this journey in high school with you?
It was pretty hidden until the very end where because I had I had not eaten for a good constant, maybe 8 months, so almost a year. And just the dramatic drop in weight. They were like, hey, I know you're doing sports, but this is a bit too dramatic. So what's actually happening? And I'm just I don't know, I guess high metabolism. I didn't really bring them in on that side until it just kind of all broke at once and I started crying in my bathroom. My mom's just like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm here for you. And so I never fully opened up to her about that until I was away at college. I had written something for an online article for the school and she had read it and that's when she was really I had no idea, I was there for you and I knew something was up, but I didn't know the extent.
So what was the article about?
It was the 13 Reasons Why show that came out. It's
I
about.
don't know about it. So you're
Okay.
going to have to back me
No
up.
worries. So there's a show on Netflix about suicide, basically.
Okay.
And it's a very dramatic piece, and it's been a lot of controversy just because of how deep they go into it. But basically, the person at the beginning of the show who committed suicide gives 13 reasons why she did it. So my counter article, it was kind of like still a mental health piece and just getting the people to notice, mental health is still something that we need to talk about. My thing was 13 reasons why I did not. And so, I just went back through, I did do this, but I did not do that. And so, these are the people that were in my life that kind of really helped me out. And these are the things in my life that said, hey, it's not time to do this.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a copy of your article?
I do. I can find it and I will send it to you.
If you're open, I would love to publish it.
Yeah,
put it on
for
the show
sure.
notes.
I mean, it's
that
on
sounds
the
really
website
powerful.
somewhere.
13 reasons why you did not commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to bring it up because I just don't really feel like people understand that, this is where I bawl my eyes out, that life is fragile and life is important, and that up to 75% of people taking their life because I believe that God makes you perfectly in his or her image. God did this on purpose, and that it's society and culture that's got it all wrong.
Yeah.
That very much we are two spirits, all of us. People joke all the time, I've got so much masculine energy because I'm cisgender, meaning I feel like my brain and my body match. That's a term people probably haven't heard of that are listening, but I'm cisgender, but I have a lot of I just have a lot of masculine energy.
Yeah.
And I have other friends that are male that have so much feminine energy. And we can be both. And we just need to shed light on the fact that I would like to get rid of hashtag gender reveal off of Instagram. I mean, really, if anyone's listening, please don't have a gender reveal party. It's a sex reveal. We're making a guess, just like the story we read at the beginning. We're making a guess about our children.
Yeah, even the person who created the whole gender reveal thing, I think it was her child or first or something came out as non-binary, and this kid's 10 or so. And at that point, she was like, please stop doing this. Now I'm more, aware of what actually happens and everything that goes on in some person's life. Even though I thought it was this way, they say it's this way.
Yeah. And it's also a learning process. So I'm on episode whatever. I have a transgender family member. I have still caught myself on the podcast saying, did you find out the gender?
Yeah.
I'm preaching and I'm changing,
But it
all
is
at
a
the
learning
same
curve.
time. Yeah. And I do have friends now that we were just talking about non-binary, right? This is another new concept, kind of saying, well, I don't need to call myself a boy or a girl. I just feel like me. Sometimes it's more feminine. Sometimes it's more masculine. And those friends of mine prefer to be identified as they or them, And so, so much to learn as we do this. But I really wanted to focus in on the fact that this is not okay. Yeah. It is not okay that there is that high of a suicide rate with our friends and with our family members and with so many people out there that are having thoughts and feelings and are not sharing them. Maybe they're not sharing them at 5 or 6. Maybe they're not sharing them at puberty. Maybe they're not sharing them until college. Maybe they're not sharing them until after their kids are grown and they're already married and they've lived an entire lifetime battling those suicidal thoughts, because thinking something's I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No.
When you look back at the suicidal thoughts, what do you think was the basis for that?
It was definitely the aspect that I was not fully being myself. I knew even like with the eating disorder, I was like, this isn't me, but I need to do something. And so that was my thought, to do that. With the suicide thoughts, I was just like, well, if I can't change anything, because at the time, like I had no idea about transgender people. I had no idea about that this was even an option. And I just thought, like, I could not continue this way for forever, how long I have. And so that's just not being able to really be like, this is who I am, was something that brought me down. And I went to college and like kind of got into a local like LGBT group, and it was very informative. Like they said, this is what we can get. Like, these are just options that you have. Yeah. And it was about my junior year of college. I actually have a tattoo on my ribs. It's in my own handwriting, and it says, "You are not done." And that was like something that I got for myself. And I was just like, okay, this is a reminder for me that no matter what, I can continue doing something to better myself and better like present myself as who I am.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's always help.
Yeah.
And so many people, I feel like what you just said, like, I didn't even know this was a term. That was the case for my family member. Like, they didn't even know. They didn't have a word until they landed in a counselor's office and they said, this sounds like gender dysphoria. Mm-hmm. This sounds like you're transgender. And then they went to read about that. And I don't want to speak for them, but basically accepted with relief.
Yeah.
Oh, this is exactly like what I've been feeling. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, this is it. Like someone knows there's other people out there, like me.
Yeah.
So we're about to kind of get into your birth story of like birthing, about birthing Shaine through this entire process. And I very carefully not asked you about your sexuality because gender and sexuality are two totally different things. And if there's anything that anyone takes away from this podcast, it's that, it's that.
Yeah.
That your own, whoever's listening, your own gender is different from your sexuality. Your child's gender is different from their sexuality. Your partner's gender is separate from their sexuality. And so I haven't asked you about your sexuality because honestly, it has nothing to do with your gender.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to ask you because I'm curious and we've, gotten that out of the way.
Yeah.
So, because you said you showed up at an LGBTQIA plus, I don't even know.
The community.
The community on your college campus.
Yeah.
This is where, I'm curious. It's not really part of your gender story, but
it's still a birthing.
Who do you like?
Yeah. It's still a birthing process because, just trying to figure out exactly like come to terms with how I feel about certain like people. I had gone. So when I showed up to school, I had a boyfriend, very feminine features, and like just go.
Okay.
Once I got into this, kind of meeting people at the school, going into the LGBT community itself and the group, like I started kind of just figuring things out. And at that point, I thought it was like, you can only be one. Like, pick a letter, your favorite, whichever one you want, and go be that. And so I had first come out as lesbian at the time because Taylor still identified as a woman and
was attracted to women.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I went through that for probably two-ish years in college, and then towards the end I was like, wait, I still really like guys as well. So like, is this more like a bisexual thing? And then that kind of took me into my own thought process. I'm like, wait, I don't really want to identify as bisexual while still being woman identified. So that made me really that really started the whole process of let me accept who I am myself, and then I can accept who others are. So now I identify as a pansexual transgender man, which is like totally
give the whole definition.
Yes. So
give the whole definition.
Pansexuality, I don't really mind whatever is like going on below, around, whatever you are about. If I really connect with you, like it will not matter. Like I appreciate the male's parts. I appreciate the female's parts. And I also appreciate those that are non-binary that really don't want to identify with one or the other. And that's that's totally fine as well. So just pansexuality as a whole is just really, it's an umbrella term, or it's a lower layer of bisexuality, where bisexual, you're just like one or the other, or like just two genders that you are very intrigued with. Mm-hmm. But pansexuality, you're like, yeah, everyone, let's just go. So,
see, to me, the way that I hear that is that you invest time and emotion and connection into a person or their soul.
Exactly.
And then it really, the outer package means very little to you.
Yeah.
That to me is more how I would define pansexual when I'm hearing you.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like...
What was the second part of that?
Transgender, pansexual, transgender man.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep. And that's just saying like I'm transgender man, so I'm female to male in my process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're in college. I'm like, we're in college. Like I'm in Tampa with you. I'm like, we're in college.
Oh, college.
I'm like, yeah. So we're in college. You're in college. And you write this really powerful paper, the statement, and you share it with your mom. And like, I want to walk through that parental dynamic. Yeah. You're on your own. You've got this support system with this LGBTQIA group at your university, and then enter your mom into this picture.
Yeah. I went through the group and everything. They had elections for the board of people who could, plan events and whatnot. And I actually won a seat on the board. And that's how my mom kind of found out, because at this time, like I hadn't come out to her at all, like with anything. And so like she saw on Facebook, all right, now introducing your new board member, here's Taylor. And she was like, what is this LGBT thing that's going on? And so I actually came out to her like over the phone and had that conversation with her that way. And so...
And when you say you came out to her, you came out to her as
lesbian.
Oh, you came out first. So the sexuality piece, preceded the transgender piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first sexuality moment. And that's when I was just like, hey, Mom, your daughter likes women. And she was like, okay, like, I'm down with this. Like it was kind of rocky at first, but she's like, no, that's just who you are. And then like keep going through to the piece that I had written that came out to her about my depression. And she's like, hey, again, I wasn't really aware of this happening, but I'm here for you, and just know, like, I love you and everything like that. So that was, that kind of coming out in a way with my depression. And then fast forward to now, because I actually only recently came out as transgender, not only to myself, but to people. And that was in December of last year.
Ooh, what was your birthday? Do you remember?
It was like right before New Year, so probably like December 30th something.
Okay,
we'll go with that.
We're gonna have to go with it. I was like, you need
go with it.
You need Shaine's birthday. Okay, December 30th.
Exactly. Okay. So we'll go with that.
Yeah.
I'll be, what is that? Capricorn. I'll do that.
So this is a new birth.
Yeah.
We're recording this on September 11th, your birthday.
Yep.
So I don't know when it comes out, but this is the day that we're recording it. So you're really only 9 months into your birth. You're a baby.
I'm a child.
You're a baby.
But yeah, and I actually fully told people that I was transgender on stage, at the Comedy Zone. That was the first time that I came out, and I did a set. And that was it.
Were you shaking and quivering?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. As soon as I came out on stage and said, I am transgender, there was someone that actually gasped at first, I guess, because they could sense my nervousness and whatnot. But as soon as that happened, I was just like, wait. Yeah, this is.
And then they're like, is he making a joke?
Yeah.
Is he I can see that.
So that's also something I had to.
At a comedy club, that could be confusing,
Exactly. This very serious topic, but I'm like, I'm supposed to laugh. So that was just invigorating itself, because once I did that, it was now these people will see who I truly am, and I can really connect with them on these joke topics that I want to talk about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, but that would have made you 24 years old. And so in college, we're so I want to talk about this gap now. Yeah. So now you're identifying as a lesbian. You're still Taylor. You're in college. And then there are these 4 years that are leading up to the birth of Shaine. Okay. So in those 4 years, what were you doing to help your dysphoria?
Oh my goodness. I don't even know if I was doing something to like
The boxer shorts.
Yeah,
I mean, you know what I mean? Was there anything?
I did the minor things that I could. Like I still dressed pretty masculine presenting, and I just was the way that I was. But
Was your hair short or long?
It's been short since I think 2013. Like that like was the first thing that I did once I got to college. I was like, nope, bye. It's fine.
Okay.
The major dysphoria that I was having was with my breasts.
Okay.
And so I would like look at these shirts, love them, absolutely love them in the store, go try them on in the dressing room, and they wouldn't look exactly how I had imagined them to look on me.
Okay.
And so that made me more like, I can't buy this shirt that I like because I won't feel comfortable. And if you don't feel comfortable, you're never going to wear it. So I don't want to like spend all this money. I really...
Because you had curves.
Yeah, exactly.
That you weren't interested in having.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I still have them. Even now, I haven't started tea or anything, but I know what, kind of binding is itself, which really just straps down the breast and makes it more flat chested. So it still isn't as, perfect as I would want it to be, but it really alleviates it now.
Okay.
But going back, I didn't really know. Like so many of my friends were coming out as transgender. I was like, that's great for them. And I was like, wow, look at them go. It wasn't until maybe 2-3 years, like I said, after that, I was like, wow, this can be something that I can do. And like, this is an option.
Or this feels like it matches.
Yeah, who I am.
Right. And the thoughts that you have been having, all along on this journey. But it still took until you were 24 years old to kind of put all those puzzle pieces together.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to a counselor?
I did. I had gone for mainly my depression side, and let me talk about it this way. And then because they knew me as Taylor lesbian, and so I would talk about that, but we never really got into this, gender identity side of it.
I venture because you were not seeing a counselor who specialized in gender identity.
Yeah.
Because someone who specializes in gender identity might have been able to pick up on that a little bit sooner. Yeah. I guess.
Oh, so. For sure. So I went to, it was mainly like, it was free through the school. It was the school's counselors and they're like PhD and therapists and everything. So it was mainly for my depression side. Now I'm seeing a gender therapist and, we're going into these in-depth conversations about, this is absolutely who I am and this is what I can be.
Yeah. I think this is really important that you just said that, though, too, because people might be surprised that there are therapists that specialize in gender identity. Yeah. So in Charlotte right now, we have some really great ones. Do you want to say who your therapist is or do you want to keep that private?
I'll keep that one. Okay. But there are many great gender therapists in the Charlotte area. Like you were saying, there's a lot of good trans groups as well, like Transgender Charlotte also not only shows you and points you in the direction of therapists in the area, but they also have a trans closet, which is like people donate clothes. They have clothes for everyone. Whatever you want, you kind of just go in and be like, hey, this is really nice. I can present this way without actually having to worry about
the cost.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'm imagining there's a way for people to donate clothes to the trans closet also. And again, we're local to Charlotte, North Carolina. But what I'm going to do in the show notes and on the website is I'm going to take this episode and then we're going to link to resources so that if anyone's listening and they think like their child or themselves or their spouse, like so that they have an opportunity to find some resources out there too. All right, Shaine. So one of the things that you just like, flashed right over was like, you just said T. And so anyone who's listening is probably like, I didn't understand that letter.
Yeah.
So T stands for?
Testosterone.
Okay.
Yes.
So
in my transition as a transgender man, in order to, kind of go medically transitioning, like even I'm coming out and I'm doing all this and I am in the process of transitioning. But this medical side is where with testosterone, I inject my body with it and it starts giving me more masculine features. It kind of like, it's my body on testosterone itself. So even though I'm so used to my body with the estrogen, now there's other elements coming into place. And it's almost like I'm going through a second puberty.
Okay. Let's I have a million questions about that.
I bet.
Where do you get testosterone?
You can get it at Planned Parenthood.
Okay.
Many people get it through their own primary care physicians, but they have to be certified for HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy. It used to be harder to where like you had to have a therapist sign off and then your doctor had to sign off and then they both had to come together and be like, this is what this person needs. And then you go get the prescription. Okay. Now it's pretty, with a lot of advancement in society and, just medical stuff itself, you can go to your doctor and just be like, hey, I'm interested in hormone replacement therapy. Okay, let's look and, blood work, see what you can do, like what one will really go with your body more and get you it. So,
and then you said it's an injection, like with a needle?
Yes. I would have to inject.
This is a shout out to all the diabetics out there.
I was actually about to compare kind of similar. Each week, I would just have to, pick a spot, usually legs or the butt cheek or something like that, and inject it through there.
It's not the easiest thing to put something.
I'm ready for like when the testosterone would be like in a vape option, because that'll be much easier for me, or like a patch or something. But yeah, right now it's the injections itself.
I wonder if any drug companies are working on that. It's weekly, so just once a week injection. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's not too terrible.
No, then. Not too terrible at all. And that they kind of regulate it that way, because if you inject too much testosterone, let's say like you wanted to really just advance your medical transition, and you're like, I'm going to inject all of my testosterone. Don't do that, because it will actually, if your body gets too much testosterone, it'll start reverting it to estrogen. So it'll make you
makes sense.
It'll make you more feminine and slow down your process, even though you're trying to speed it up. So really go with what the doctor's saying, the amount that they give you, and the timing that they give you. It has to be on point, almost like the birth control. And like, it has to be at this time, it has to be this amount, and just each week go through that.
So when we called you a toddler earlier, it really is if you're like pregnant with yourself.
Yeah.
Because it takes, so how long? So you said you're going through another puberty.
Yeah.
Now my adult mind doesn't remember how long puberty lasts.
Yeah.
So how long are you like coached on that this puberty will last? Like you inject yourself every single week with testosterone. You're going through a second puberty.
Uh-huh.
Have they told you like how long that will last until your body starts to regulate?
They said it's honestly up to your body itself, because I have friends who they're going on a year on T now, and they still kind of look like a 12-year-old, but they're just more masculine 12-year-old.
Yeah,
like they're more 15-year-old right now.
Okay,
and then I've known other people who inject it, and after a month they already have a full beard, and just they're so passing itself. So they said it's honestly up to how much testosterone your body naturally produces, as well as how much and how regularly you do it this way. They explained to me that no matter how long I do this, I will always experience new changes. Okay. So for the rest of my life, something different will pop up and I'll be like, that's new. And just it'll keep going there. But they said the dramatic changes usually happen around 6 to 8 months. Okay. That's when the voice really starts dropping. Hair comes everywhere. And that's when it starts 9 months to a year. You're kind of settling out itself.
Okay. And what month did you start the testosterone?
I have not started
yet.
You
haven't?
No.
Okay. Never mind.
I have my first appointment to get my blood work and actually get the prescription at the end of this month.
Okay.
So that's.
Do you want to know why? Because I was like, well, you don't have any like acne. That was the first thing I was thinking.
That's one.
Will
of the
you
big
go
things.
through acne? I'm assuming and a lot of people going through puberty go through.
Yeah.
Acne. And so I'm looking at your face that doesn't have any acne on it right now. And I'm thinking, that.
Yeah, it will bring out a lot of more acne, just everywhere.
Okay.
They really said. But there's treatments for that as well. Like just be regular on your skincare. Even though you're injecting, that can't be the only thing that you're worried about. You still have to go through your regular hygiene and everything like that. Also like face scrubs and all that, and keep your body maintained. But I will become more sweaty and more acne. And so it's going to happen.
And bigger? I'm assuming your body mass would get bigger when you're on testosterone?
Yeah, it'll get bigger. Muscles will develop a little faster.
Okay.
Like I go to that's one of my dysphoria things right now, because I go to the gym almost every day, and I'm like, I'm still this. And so that's going to be like one thing that will increase my muscle index and everything like that.
Okay. And then, so what else? Facial hair?
Yeah. If
lowering voice.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, again, a female to male transition on testosterone. Expectations from HRT would be that your physical body is going to get bigger and stronger. Mm-hmm. Your voice is going to drop. Are there any changes that you would expect your breast tissue to get smaller?
Yes. Actually, my friend, we were kind of, when he was a she at the moment, we were kind of similar in body structure. Now his breast tissue, without top surgery, which is removing your breasts, it looks just like male pecs, male nipples. And so it's completely passing and being able to, like, if I could do my testosterone and my breasts shrink and I wouldn't have to go through top surgery, I would absolutely love that. But, you know, again, it's different bodies. It's really what my body's going to do itself. But I try to approach it as I can't have certain expectations, because if you focus on the expectations of what you think you'll look like, it'll really just ruin your whole experience of what you will eventually actually look like. And you'll, you know, kind of, at least I know I'll have the dysphoria then. It's like, I worked so hard to get to this spot. Why am I still trying to change the way that I am, even though this is what I've wanted all the time? So I've been trying to go, you know, at it more so like, if it happens, cool. If not, if I don't get the beard or anything, awesome. But like, I'm still going through my medical side and I'm doing what I can to really be true to myself.
Right. I love that you said that. And as we kind of like wrap up here, there's a couple of things I want to address. And this is like the mom in me coming out to you, right? Is that it is just as important for you to continue to focus on all of the things about you that have nothing to do with your body and dysphoria. Mm-hmm. Like, I love that you have mixed around all the pieces of the puzzle to find comedy, right? And to find these other things that are you, that have nothing to do with your gender, with your body, what you look like. On the other side of this, right? There was a counselor I was with one time that said, no matter where you go, there you are. Yeah. No matter what you wear, there you are. No matter what you look like, there you are. Mm-hmm. So it's just as important that we have that conversation, that as people are having these feelings and these transitions and going on that path, that we're equally focused on, like, when you say who I truly am, that goes so far beyond the gender, right? Of like looking at those things that you're passionate about, like comedy, like a career, like exercise and going to the gym, like doing body art. There's so many things that you mentioned today that have shown me so many more pieces of who you are that have nothing to do with gender. Does that make sense? Yeah, and so that's the mommy in me that's like, keep focusing on that too, like waking up and figuring out like what brings me joy, like what is it that sets my soul on fire.
Exactly.
You know,
and going off that, like, the medical transitioning and, you know, me wanting to present more masculine, more so a male form body. Again, that's just all physical stuff. But like you were saying, you are always there. And who am I besides being transgender? And so that kind of brings me back into the comedy. Like, okay, what am I more so interested in talking about? What can I really relay more so? Yeah. And that just flows together. Like, this is just it's not a minor thing, but it's just so like on the dot of everything else.
And the reason I bring it up is because my little sister, like I said, is also your age. And there's this thing, have you ever heard of the quarter life crisis?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So that's why I was like, well, there's also probably, you have this added layer, you know, a second puberty, this like transition, but you also probably are going into your quarter life crisis where you're like, okay, you said you just moved out of your parents' house.
Yep. The next chapter has definitely started. It's just that fine line of the ending of the first segment of the life, and then now this part of really accepting, you know, who I am and being true to who I am in all aspects. That's like this new mid part of life. And so it's honestly fascinating for me and exciting, because I'm like, there's so much more that I can do, and there's so much in the world. And now that I'm accepting of who I am and how I present to people, I feel so much more flowing with the universe itself, because I am true to who I am. I'm accepting of me, and now I can do that with the world.
Yeah. Well, I hope that you add me as one more person that's in your support bucket, and that you always remember that what you have tattooed, like you are not done.
Exactly.
Like there's so much life. And I'm just so excited that you're embracing it. And like Shaine is here.
Yeah.
Like, goodbye, Taylor.
It's Shaine now.
Yeah. Did you have to have kind of like a ritual or a ceremony to like say goodbye to Taylor? Or was it like peace?
It was more so kind of like peace. Well, so I was the way that I picked my own name itself is that I was just like, okay, what kind of, flows with me? What's my story, and like what is kind of something that can really encompass who I am itself. And then with my name being Laine, I was like, I kind of want something to flow with it. So I was like, Shaine Laine sounds dope. So that is exactly how I was going. And I was writing comedy at the time to really figure out, okay, what kind of names go with it. And so in a way, it was sort of like a ritual because I'm like, I'm doing my comedy. Here goes that past me and here's a new me. Let's do this. So
yeah. Have you officially changed your name?
Legally, like on all the government documents and like for insurance and W-2s and purposes, it is my birth name. But,
can you get rid of that pretty easy?
With North Carolina, it's a little more, tedious.
Oh,
I know.
North Carolina.
But, but there are options. My friends are going through the process of changing their names now. It's mainly like, background checks and just keeping everything solid like that.
Yeah.
So it will be a process in the future, but focus on the now. I'm dealing with getting my testosterone, and that's really what I'm going to be dealing with in the next couple months.
Okay. This is really exciting.
Yeah.
The very last thing that we're going to close out with is on your Instagram.
Yep.
Let's tell everybody how to find you.
Okay. It is Shaine O. Laine. And
spell it.
I was about to say, I'm very interesting, so I spelled it an interesting way. It's ShainneOlaine. So Shaine Laine, both with eyes.
Yes, with an O in between.
Yes.
So
exactly.
On your Instagram, you have like an epic like Snapchat where you're like, thank you, Snapchat, for all of the different, like you can turn yourself, like, put a beard on yourself and something to help your dysphoria. The reason I want to end on this is because if someone's like still listening all the way through the end and they're like, I'm just not understanding dysphoria, right? Like I'm not understanding like, what he's talking about, right? I want everyone to open up their phone, get on Snapchat.
Instagram.
And it's on Instagram.
So the filter itself is on Snapchat and they can have you do, they have a male version and a female version. So like if you identify as male, go try the female one.
Do the opposite.
And it shows you how you would, quote unquote, present if you were the other way.
Yeah. I'm saying this because this is one of the very first things that helped me understand my family member the way that they felt is putting a beard. Like I literally like did the filter and like put a beard on myself and like short hair. And I felt so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like I felt so like, ugh, like who is this person, And that, everyone, is what body dysphoria is. That is what we're talking about today. Like that feeling that I had for a minute, if you guys jump onto this filter and do it, like if you can't carry around that feeling for an entire day, for an entire lifetime, through puberty, through elementary school, middle school, or high school, like that feeling is why we're having this conversation. It's because that suicide rate has to change. Like we have to become a culture and a society where like we embrace two spirits. We embrace a person's true self. We embrace that God made each of us perfectly. Right?
Yep.
And I'm just so thankful that you were on today to share your birthday.
I really appreciate you like inviting me to do this because this was an amazing way to really celebrate my birth and just my birthday itself. Like, again, this is the new chapter and this is what's going to happen. Like things are going to happen, and seeing this and being able to talk with you about it was just so amazing.
Yeah. I love your birth story and I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Birth Story. My goal is you will walk away from each episode with a clear picture of how labor and delivery might go, and that you will feel empowered by the end of your pregnancy to speak up, plan and prepare for the birth you want, no matter what that looks like.